There is no silent mourning for anyone here today, because this story is not a funeral, it is a level up. Your departure is not a loss, but the seal of a divine ascension that is taking place in front of everyone's eyes. When everyone is waiting for the end, you are starting anew. When everyone is preparing to mourn, you are ascending to the skies, opening a brand new chapter in your destiny. There are no tombstones in this call, but peaks. Every expectation of a fall is answered with a promotion. Your ascension changes the course not only of your own life but also of those who follow you. If there is a shining beacon in the sky today, it is you. Write 444 in the comments now. Don't just be a spectator, be a part of the story. With your support, we will become a giant family of 5,000 people. Subscribe now, turn on notifications and join us. Because the chosen ones are not buried in the ground, they rise to eternity. Imagine a tree that finally grows beyond the shadow of the old barn, stretching its limbs wide to drink in the morning sun. No longer confined, it stands as a quiet monument to survival and self-worth. In much the same way, there comes a turning point in life when a person rises up and refuses to fold themselves small to make others comfortable. This isn't just a rebellion against outside pressure. It's the blossoming of a spirit that knows, deep down, it was never meant to live in the dimness cast by someone else's expectations. For many years, the urge to play it safe, to apologize for being too much, might have ruled your days. Maybe you learned to keep your head down in crowded rooms, soften your voice in heated conversations, or laugh at jokes that never landed. Each of those moments felt like you were putting on a coat that didn't fit, a disguise that weighed you down. But the seasons change, and suddenly, what once felt comfortable now feels constricting. The heart begins to whisper, then speak, then shout, enough is enough. It's time to step out of the old, hand-me-down narratives and step into the full measure of your light. Just as a river carves its own course, refusing to be boxed in by fallen logs or shifting rocks, your soul is learning how to flow in freedom. There's something profoundly spiritual about claiming your own space, not as an act of arrogance, but as a declaration that the Creator didn't fashion you to disappear into the wallpaper of life. Every gift, every insight, every scar you carry was put there for a reason, and now is the moment to let them shine. Those first steps may be quiet, no fanfare, no headlines. But with every stride, your feet find solid ground. Where you once tiptoed around the opinions of others, you now move with the confidence of someone who has survived storms and found shelter not in the approval of the crowd, but in the presence of God. The world may not throw you a parade for refusing to play small, but heaven surely takes notice. The applause of angels drowns out the whispers of doubters. In the beginning, there may still be voices, internal and external, that try to convince you to shrink back. They might say, "Who do you think you are?" or "Don't rock the boat." But as you continue, those voices fade beneath the roar of newfound certainty. You realize that negotiating your worth is a habit best left in the past. The time of excusing your dreams, apologizing for your ambitions, or softening your glow for someone else's comfort has come to an end. Like a lighthouse rising from the rocky coast, your presence becomes a beacon, steady, unfaltering, impossible to ignore. This isn't about perfection, it's about authenticity. You are called to stand in your truth, to anchor yourself so firmly in what is real that no wind of gossip or misunderstanding can knock you over. Your roots go deep, reaching back through generations of survival and hope. Your branches stretch out, offering shelter to others who are searching for the courage to do the same. There's a sacred boldness in letting yourself take up the space you were designed for. Some might mistake your confidence for pride, but the ones who have walked the path of self-denial will recognize it for what it is: the fruit of long struggle, honest reflection, and divine affirmation. The Spirit whispers, "You were never meant to fade into the background. You are the answer to prayers your ancestors barely dared to speak." When you claim your ground, you inspire others, maybe without ever knowing it. There are younger souls, weary travelers, and silent watchers who need to see someone like you refuse to vanish. Each time you walk into a room with your head high and your values intact, you're planting seeds of permission in the soil of someone else's doubt. The ripple effect is real. Courage is contagious. And it's not just for show. Taking up space is an act of worship, a living, breathing thank you for the life you've been given. It's saying to the universe, I trust that I was made for this hour, and I'm not afraid to shine. It's choosing to believe that your light has a purpose, even if others squint against its brightness. You learn to stop dimming yourself for the sake of harmony, realizing that real peace only comes when everyone stands in the truth of who they are. Yes, it can feel lonely at first. The higher you climb, the fewer people will understand the view. But don't let that pull you back down. Remember the tree that grew past the old barn, its branches now home to new birds, its roots holding the earth steady, its shade a blessing for those who linger underneath. You, too, become a landmark for the lost, a signpost for the searching, simply by refusing to play small. With time, you begin to see that what felt like isolation was actually sacred preparation. All those quiet nights of soul-searching, all those tears shed in secret, were watering the roots of resilience. The reward isn't always loud or instant, but it is lasting. Strength shows up in the ability to say no when needed, to set boundaries without guilt, to leave spaces where you are merely tolerated and seek out those where you are celebrated. Your journey invites others into their own awakening. People may not remember your words, but they will never forget your example. Your courage gives them a blueprint, your resolve gives them hope, and your faith gives them reason to believe that, maybe, their story isn't finished either. Are you a story lover or a truth seeker? Subscribe and be both. So walk tall, chosen one. Trust the road, even if it winds through lonely valleys and across unfamiliar terrain. You are being led, not just by instinct, but by a spirit that knows the way home. The world needs the unique melody of your voice, the steady warmth of your presence, the unapologetic truth of your story. There will always be critics, but you were not called to be understood by everyone, just to be obedient to the truth placed in your heart. Let your actions speak. Let your integrity shine. Let your love be the evidence of your transformation. When you refuse to shrink, you become the living proof that freedom is possible, that faith can move mountains, and that a single soul committed to standing tall can change the landscape for generations to come. So plant your feet, lift your chin, and let the world adjust to your radiance. After all, you were never meant to live in anyone's shadow. Picture a traveler who's wandered for years, carrying a lantern through foggy crossroads, learning the hard way which doors lead to fullness and which to famine. After so many long nights hungry for validation, there comes a dawn when they recognize the difference between a feast and a facade. Some invitations, once alluring, are now as hollow as a drum, sounding loud, but holding nothing on the inside. It's in that clarity you realize, not every knock at your door deserves to be answered, and not every hand extended offers true bread. This is the holy moment when you put down the beggar's bowl. Where once you might have accepted crumbs, hoping for acceptance or favor, you find the courage to close your hand with quiet dignity. You're no longer desperate for scraps from tables built on shallow intentions. There is a wisdom that comes with walking through fire, knowing that the things dressed up to look like blessings can sometimes be traps, designed to test whether you'll still sell yourself short for the sake of being included. It isn't pride. It's the awakening of a deeper truth, the Spirit reminding you that you were never created to settle for less than God's best. A lifetime of grasping at shadows, of taking less so others wouldn't feel threatened, suddenly dissolves in the light of this new revelation. No more trading the gold of your calling for the costume jewelry of temporary approval. No more exchanging your sacred peace for fleeting applause. You reach a place where the old cravings lose their grip, and your spirit stands tall on a new threshold. Think of a seed that finally refuses to stay buried, cracking open the shell that once protected but now confines. The invitation to shrink, whether it comes wrapped in compliments or disguised as opportunities, no longer tempts you. You don't need to dim your radiance for someone who hasn't learned to appreciate the light. In this new era, the Spirit coaches you from within. Your worth is not up for barter. The currency has changed, no longer measured in acceptance, but in authenticity, in integrity, in the simple, quiet peace that comes from saying no. Sometimes the test arrives as a friend, sometimes as a stranger, sometimes as a well-meaning offer. But now, with discernment sharpened by every lesson, you see the hollow inside the wrapper. You recognize the pattern. If you say yes to less, you train the world, and yourself, to expect less from life. But when you close your hand and guard your treasure, heaven leans in closer. In the act of refusal, something sacred is released. You prove to yourself and to the universe that you are ready for what truly aligns. No more chasing after cheap invitations that drain your time, spirit, or hope. The gatherings you once entered out of obligation or fear of missing out now hold no power. You would rather sit alone in peace than feast among those who do not honor your journey. It is not loneliness, but freedom. The freedom to wait for what is meant, the confidence to walk away from what is not. This kind of freedom can't be bought in the marketplace of approval. It is only gained by living true, by letting old habits die. You realize, too, that this transition will unsettle others. Those who benefited from your tendency to settle may try harder to draw you back, presenting their offers more loudly, making you question your standards. But your feet are planted now. You remember how it felt to wake up in regret after accepting less, and you have no intention of going back. You honor your boundaries, knowing they are not walls to keep love out, but gates to let true abundance in. Your story becomes a quiet sermon to those who are watching. Maybe they won't say it aloud, but they'll notice you don't flinch at being misunderstood. They'll see you choose integrity over applause, peace over performance. Your refusal isn't loud, but it's powerful. It tells the world and every onlooker that your value is not determined by the whims of passing admirers. In this new landscape, you stop settling for trinkets and start expecting treasure. You realize that God's promises are never delivered in scraps, and every no you give to what's beneath your calling is a yes to what's divinely assigned to you. You look at your open hand, not empty, but ready for something greater, something lasting, something real. That's the currency of this new era, standing in your own worth, living in truth, and never letting go of the gold you were born to carry. And as the sun rises on this chapter, you find yourself unburdened. The old hunger for validation has been replaced by the sweet satisfaction of honoring your spirit. The emptiness left by empty invitations is filled by a peace that passes all understanding. You know now that your greatest abundance is found in the courage to refuse what doesn't serve you and to wait, sometimes in stillness, sometimes in faith, for the banquet that's being prepared just for you. In that holy patience, your soul learns the sacred art of receiving, not from a place of lack, but from the fullness of knowing who you are and whose you are. Imagine the story of a garden where every flower used to lean toward the loudest voice, stretching for approval and sunlight that always seemed just out of reach. Then one season, the wind shifts and the roots grow deeper, not outward for validation, but downward into strength that no storm can steal. Now, when an old gardener shows up, waving the same tired script and trying to tend the flowers the way it always was, the blossoms don't bend. They simply stand tall, rooted in new wisdom, blooming for themselves and not for the show. There's a sacred turning happening on this earth, one that can be felt in kitchens, office meetings, even church pews, where the soul inside you quietly decides, I'm done with being the hero in someone else's never-ending rescue story. Faces from earlier pages might return, wearing different masks and reciting spiritual-sounding lines, hoping you'll pick up the old apron, step back into the role that kept them comfortable, and silence your own needs for the sake of the piece. But now, something inside resists the old rehearsal. There's a new director calling the shots from within, and this one refuses to cast you as the eternal caretaker. This isn't rebellion for rebellion's sake. It's the gentle revolution of self-respect, a shift that echoes in the very marrow of your bones. The ones who once leaned on you for every answer might sense it, even if they can't name it. Suddenly, the old scripts fall flat, the manipulations lose their magic, and the chorus of guilt can't hold its note. The world around you begins to sense the boundaries, even if it doesn't celebrate them. You've stepped out of the role you were never meant to play for life, and you've done it not out of anger, but out of a desire to grow whole and honest. This change doesn't just ripple through your own story, it sets a vibration across the globe. You can feel it in the way people are now quietly saying no to draining phone calls, setting limits on old expectations, and carving out time for their own healing. Each boundary becomes an invitation for others to examine their own roles, their own places where they've been playing too small for too long. A collective healing is happening, not with loud announcements, but with silent decisions, small refusals, and gentle reclaimings of energy. Ready for twists, secrets, and ancient mysteries? Subscribe and start the adventure. It's not that compassion has died out, it's simply been put in its rightful place. True love, the kind that sustains instead of drains, starts with a heart that knows how to say yes to itself. You're witnessing a time where being needed is no longer the highest form of service. Being true is. In every home where someone stops running to put out every fire, in every friendship where honesty is chosen over compliance, the Spirit is at work, planting seeds for a future where people are whole and healthy, not just useful. If you pause and listen, you'll notice this movement is not just personal, it's universal. The ground is shaking under every old pattern that used to keep the chosen ones locked in roles of rescue and self-forgetfulness. Now, the chosen are drawing lines in the sand, stepping into their center, anchoring themselves in purpose that can't be shaken by anyone's opinion. The rooms they enter feel it. The energy shifts, the atmosphere settles, and even those still caught in old dramas sense that a new era has begun. In this era, the greatest gift you give is your presence, not your perpetual availability. The story is no longer about being the hero in every crisis, but about being the author of your own piece. Others will have to find their own way, write their own chapters, and discover that the hand that helps is also allowed to rest. The awakening spreading through the world is teaching everyone a higher lesson, that wholeness is more powerful than being needed, and being true to your soul serves a greater good than sacrificing yourself on the altar of approval. So when the next person comes knocking with the lines and costumes of yesterday, you'll recognize it for what it is, a call to play a part you've outgrown. And with a heart full of peace and a spirit standing tall, you'll gently close that chapter and turn toward the next, where you get to be exactly who you were always meant to be, whole, chosen, and free. Picture a lantern that once glowed for every passerby, its oil spent on lighting paths that led nowhere. There comes a time, though, when that lantern is placed gently in the window of its own home, shining only for those willing to honor its light, not just to borrow its warmth. That's the shift unfolding now. The world once expected you to burn for every request, to show up in every dimly lit room just to keep others comfortable. But something deeper has awakened, a gentle yet unwavering resolve to let your light serve its true purpose. Life has a way of sending lessons wrapped in familiar faces. Invitations arrive not as fierce confrontations, but as soft suggestions, as if you might quietly resume old roles. Friends or family, perhaps out of habit, nudge you toward gatherings where the air is thick with pretense and the words barely skim the surface of anything real. Maybe they mean well. Maybe they simply don't see how much you've changed. Yet, standing in the doorway of such a moment, you realize the bravest move isn't to force a smile or laugh along. It's to let your soul lead instead of your manners. The old habit would have been to nod, show up, fill the space with agreeable words and laughter that echoed off empty walls. You might have confused politeness with kindness, believing that being liked was the same as being true. But now, wisdom is blooming like spring after a long winter, teaching you that the truest form of love is sometimes a gentle no, that sacredness isn't found in rooms that ask you to silence your spirit. In this new chapter, protecting your energy isn't selfishness, it's stewardship. What a surprise it is for those who thought they could count on the old you. When you simply and quietly choose not to step into spaces that don't nourish your soul, it's as if the rules of the game have changed. People may stumble, recalibrate, even protest, but deep down, something in the air is different. You're not seeking applause for your refusal, just choosing not to betray your own peace for the sake of being pleasant. This is a holy revolution in the small things, a power discovered in absence, a grace expressed in boundaries. You don't owe your energy to every room, nor your laughter to every joke. The peace you've fought for is a treasure, not a coin to be spent on every casual ask. There's a deep lesson here, one that ripples through the generations. True virtue isn't measured by how many demands you meet, but by how honestly you walk in your spirit's leading. Every gentle no becomes a ripple of courage for someone else watching, someone who also feels weary from old patterns. In honoring your own essence, you become a beacon for others who long to step out of roles that drain them. And in this world that so often rewards compliance, your simple refusal to trade your peace for politeness is a testimony that the highest loyalty is owed not to expectation, but to the calling inside you. So, with every invitation that comes, weigh it not against guilt or habit, but against the quiet voice within, the one that knows the cost of dimming your own light. In doing so, you teach the world that the most radical kindness is to honor your soul, and that true presence can only be offered where your spirit is welcomed and seen. Think of a gentle shepherd at dusk, quietly watching over his flock as the sun settles behind the hills. There's no shouting, no frantic running, just a steady presence that lets every wild animal in the valley know, this field is watched, this space is sacred. In much the same way, real strength doesn't make a spectacle of itself. It shows up quietly, like a well-built gate that doesn't creak in the wind, or a porch light left on to remind the world that someone is always home. Life teaches that not every kind of power needs noise or commotion. Some of the strongest souls you'll ever meet move with the quiet confidence of a mountain, rooted so deep that even storms cannot shake them. They don't bark orders, don't announce their boundaries for applause. Instead, they embody a kind of inner gravity. Just being near them, you feel the lines are drawn and nothing careless will be allowed to cross. Their silence isn't weakness, it's the sound of trust in their own discernment. There are moments when the world tries to tell you that to be safe, you must be hard, angry, always ready for battle. But the truth is, the deepest kind of protection rises from a spirit that values its own peace. It's a calm hand on the lock, not a raised fist at the window. This quiet vigilance isn't about shutting everyone out, but about lovingly filtering what comes in. It's the wisdom to know when to invite a friend to your table and when to close the blinds against a storm. Sometimes, protection means speaking up. Sometimes, it means walking away. More often, it's that steady, unmovable spirit that doesn't need to justify itself or fight for its right to exist. This is the strength of someone who knows the worth of their own sanctuary, who has come through nights of uncertainty and still guards their light with gentleness. And so, in a world that often mistakes noise for authority, be the one whose presence brings a hush, whose peace settles a room. Let your protection be a quiet blessing, a promise kept not by force, but by faith. After all, the greatest treasures are kept behind doors that are watched, not barricaded, held in the hearts of those who have learned that real guardianship is an act of love, not a show of power. Let your calm be the sentry at the threshold. Let your spirit speak for itself, without need for thunder or parade. In cherishing the sanctuary within, you become a shelter for more than just yourself. You offer the world a glimpse of what true, gentle power really looks like. Imagine a willow tree by a gentle riverbank. Its branches don't beg for the sun, they welcome it, stretching out with quiet dignity. The willow stands firm not because it resists the breeze, but because it knows how to bend without breaking, how to soak up the blessing of rain without feeling unworthy. That's what true, soft power looks like. A soul that stands upright in its own garden, unashamed to grow, unashamed to bloom. This is where a new chapter unfolds, not about carrying silent burdens or hiding your softness, but about recognizing gentleness as your inheritance. The world has long taught that kindness must be paid for with self-sacrifice, that receiving is a privilege earned only by those who first endure. But real wisdom says otherwise. Gentleness is not the shadow of strength, it is its twin. The part of you that stands up, receives goodness with open arms, and lets old weights fall off, is the part that finally understands its own value. There comes a time when you stop waiting for the world's permission to take up space, to embrace joy, to laugh out loud and let your dreams spill into daylight. Guilt no longer sits at your table, because you've learned that your place here was set by something higher than public opinion. Every act of compassion you give yourself is a brick laid in the foundation of unshakable peace. You stop dragging around stories that don't belong to you. No more picking up worries handed down by others, no more apologizing for walking free when you were meant to run. A person truly at home in themselves will always radiate a quiet courage. Their kindness is not an act. They don't bend over backwards for applause or validation. Instead, their gentleness springs from an inner knowing that life's blessings are not to be bartered for, but to be accepted in faith. Every morning, they rise as if the air is new, and every step forward is a tribute to the simple truth that their existence is a gift. In this new story, suffering is not a badge of honor, it's a season that has given way to sunlight. The old song of struggle is replaced with a melody of acceptance and abundance. It's about loving yourself enough to set down the heavy loads, about offering yourself a tenderness you once reserved only for others. Kindness to self becomes the standard, not the exception. Devotion to peace takes priority over every frantic attempt to please or perform. The willow on the riverbank never apologizes for its grace, and neither should you. Let your life be a gentle testament to the beauty of receiving, the courage of letting go, and the fierce delight of walking fully in your birthright. In doing so, you not only honor your own soul, you show others how to do the same, inviting them to rest under the shade of a spirit that knows both strength and softness are sacred. Imagine you're walking a trail in the early morning mist, the dew still clinging to the grass, unsure if the sun will break through the clouds. At first, the path is nothing but a whisper beneath your feet, each step a guess, every signpost just a subtle bend in the road. But then, without warning, the sky cracks open and sunlight pours across your path, revealing the way so clearly that you can never pretend not to see it again. That's how destiny works for the chosen. It gently nudges at first, then eventually it blazes a trail so unmistakable you have no choice but to walk it. There comes a sacred season in every life where the universe retires its subtle hints and starts speaking in thunderclaps. This is the time when the gentle nudge becomes an undeniable pull, where what was once suggestion is now written on the walls of your heart in letters of fire. Old ideas about what it means to be loyal, or to serve, or to belong, begin to crack and crumble under the pressure of something far more authentic rising up inside you. The world around you may keep trying to hand you scripts about who you're supposed to be, but the voice within grows too strong to ignore. You discover that real loyalty is not blind devotion to the comfort of others, but fierce faithfulness to the calling inside your spirit. Service stops being about self-erasure and starts to look like sacred responsibility, showing up for others, yes, but never at the expense of abandoning yourself. Belonging shifts from squeezing into small spaces in someone else's world to expanding so fully into your own, there's room for others to find home in your courage. With every trial that arrives, each one a teacher dressed in challenge, you realize you are being asked to graduate into new levels of living. Every test of loyalty, every moment where service feels like sacrifice, every invitation to belong at the cost of your truth, becomes a doorway. You pass through these thresholds not just with knowledge, but with wisdom earned in the fires of experience. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence, humility, and the willingness to keep learning even when the lessons are tough. Slowly, you recognize the miracle that's unfolding. You are both the student and the master now. You remain teachable, knowing the journey is never finished, but you also honor how far you've come and the strength that's been carved into your character. This is the paradox and the beauty of the chosen one's path. The deeper you go, the more you see that true growth is both an arrival and a continual becoming. In these new chapters, every decision is made with a sense of gravity and grace. You are no longer living to please or perform for the world's applause. You're walking in step with a higher call. The universe, in its wisdom, doesn't waste anything. Not your pain, not your questions, not a single tear. Every part of the journey becomes a thread in a tapestry larger than you can imagine, woven by hands seen and unseen. What once looked like a series of obstacles now shines as proof of your resilience. The very things that once made you question your place in the world are now the stones on which you build your altar of gratitude. You learn to bless the closed doors, to thank the tough teachers, and to celebrate the small, steady victories that add up to a life of purpose. Every story hides a secret. Subscribe and become a seeker with us. As you keep moving forward, your story becomes a lantern to others wandering their own winding paths. Without even trying, you begin to light the way for the ones who are just starting to wake up. You become the living evidence that trials are not punishments, but invitations to greater strength. Every new beginning is proof that faith grows in the space where certainty ends. So let the unmistakable signs guide you, let the lessons change you, and let the growth be your anthem. Because in the end, the greatest miracle isn't just making it through the test, It's becoming the person who no longer fears the next one, knowing you were built for every step this journey demands. And in that knowing, you become both the testimony and the teacher, the lesson and the living proof, shining brighter each time the sun breaks through the clouds. When the foundations of your identity shift, old rules fall away. The contracts written in the ink of fear and lack dissolve. In their place rises a new code. Your peace is non-negotiable, your spirit is sacred ground, your boundaries are honored as law. The ones who cannot rise to meet you will naturally fall away. Only those who value your radiance without strings remain. Each time you choose yourself, you light a beacon that others can follow. Your boundaries ripple outward, reminding others that they too are worthy of honoring their limits. It's a quiet revolution, one that says you don't need to exhaust yourself to be worthy of love. True respect is never begged for or borrowed. It's mirrored back from those who have learned its value. For those drawn to deeper waters, a secret circle forms. A fellowship not about dogma or hierarchy but about reclaiming what was always yours: agency, discernment, and the power to stand sovereign in any room. Here, old illusions are cast off and new alliances are forged, built not on need, but on shared vision and mutual strength. In the end, you walk with the kind of confidence that can't be taught, only lived. No more dimming your brilliance to fit the comfort zones of others. What's unfolding now is the true integration of everything you've learned, the sacred, unapologetic expression of your purpose. Your steady flame won't be diminished for anyone's convenience. This journey is yours to claim, and only those ready to celebrate your fullness will walk beside you.